what you're going to hit. But
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick met us at a studio in Houston where he revealed what happened behind the scenes at Ken Paxton's impeachment trial.
I'm curious if you heard anything during that 2 weeks, Governor, that you think Ken Paxton's behavior might have crossed a line.
That's a great question that would be unfair for anyone to really answer. A person was impeached, just no different than a criminal trial.
But did Paxton do anything that you heard that you thought for an attorney general might have been too much?
Obviously, there were things that came up in the trial that I think most people, including myself, would look at and say, you know, wasn't very smart. Let's just leave it at that.
Patrick slammed the House's case as rushed and weak.
We assumed at least one of the articles they had a smoking gun. At least one they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt. In 1917, they sent boxes and boxes and boxes of evidence to the Senate for the trial. We got nothing, basically, zero.
And the lieutenant governor said he wants to now reform the state's impeachment process to make it more like the federal one, where the House is required to take sworn testimony and the accused can remain in office until trial.
I heard that you had 2 sets of closing remarks. Is that right?
I wrote remarks if he was acquitted and if he was convicted. The remarks were pretty much the same, just the opening would have been a little bit different. But I was going to say the same thing because whether he was convicted or acquitted, the House process should have never have happened.
Patrick pointed out that Democrats joined Republicans to acquit on several articles. And he also answered another lingering question about the woman that Paxton is said to have had an extramarital affair with.
Why didn't Laura Olson testify?
So Laura Olson, who was the other woman in the trial, for people who don't know, the House said, well, we want to ask her these 20 questions. And then the Senate, the Paxton side said, well, if you put her up there and ask her 15 or 20 questions and she takes the 5th, that could make our client look guilty. And so we don't have a chance to cross-examine. And so I sat there and I thought about it. And I said to the House, I said, look, we all work this out. And immediately, Aaron Eppley, who I thought did a really great job for the House, the prosecutor, right, immediately said, how about if we say she's present but not available? Those were the words of the House manager, not mine. I didn't write that. And I looked at Tony Busby and I looked at Andy Murr, who was standing behind him, and they both shook their head. They're okay with that. And the reason the House was okay with that was because they didn't want to be criticized for not trying to call her.
But we still do not know whether the House will now pay that $3.3 million settlement between Paxton and the whistleblowers from his office. Insiders say it's up to Republican leaders in the House to bring it back up for another vote. Patrick's revelations, though, now layer on new context about how Paxton's historic trial played out. In Houston, I'm Jason Whiteley.
Jason spent a half hour with the Lieutenant Governor, and he'll join the Daybreak team tomorrow at 6 a.m. to take a deeper dive into that conversation. You can also listen to the entire unedited interview as a special episode of our Yolitics podcast. Point your phone at the QR code to download it or watch the episode on WFAA's YouTube page.